As we've been discussing, audio and MIDI clips are an integral part of using Ableton Live. In this video, we'll discuss the differences between audio and MIDI clips and see how those differences are reflected in the clip properties. We'll also learn how to adjust the properties that affect how a clip plays back. So there are differences in audio and MIDI clips worth noting. Audio clips are short audio recordings, and if we double-click on a clip on the audio track, notice that the clip opens in Detail View at the bottom of the session window. In the Sample Editor area, we can see the audio waveform. If I select a clip on the MIDI track, we'll see that the Sample Editor changes to the MIDI Note Editor, and here I'm seeing MIDI note blobs representing notes. I can also click the Track View selector and see the device chain that's being used with this MIDI instrument and to convert that MIDI data into sound. That's something that's not necessary on an audio track. Now, audio and MIDI clips share some properties. Let me reselect the audio clip. And I'm going to go back into the clip overview. And over here on the left-hand side of the details view, I see the clips box. And this is actually the same for both audio and MIDI clips. In the upper left-hand corner, I see the clip activator button. And if I disable that, the clip won't play. That also frees up system resources. Under that field, I see the clip name. If you want to change that, you can always click in there, and this time I'll rename it Bass. Underneath that field, I see the clip color. And if I want to change that, I can go ahead and bring up this drop-up menu and click a different color. And now you can see that it's assigned here. I see the color at the top of the box here, and then also on the clip up here on the track. Underneath that, I see the default time signature for the clip. And below that, I see the groove area, and that's something that we're going to talk about in an upcoming video. Now, on audio clips only, I get the sample box. And at the top, I see some properties about that. I actually see the name of the source wave. In this case, it's 0001 bass.wave. And then I see the sample rate, which is 44 kilohertz. The bit rate, 16-bit. And 2 channels indicates that this is a stereo file. Now, underneath that, I see the edit button. And if I click the edit button, this will actually open up this file in another program for further audio editing. And you can indicate that program by going into your Live Preferences, which on a Mac is under your Live menu, or on a PC under the Options menu, and going to the File Folder tab, and then under Sample Editor, you can browse your hard drive and choose another program. In this case, I've got it set to Pro Tools. I'm going to close that by hitting my Escape key. Now, if I make changes in the clip properties, I can save them by clicking the Save button here. And that won't affect other live sets that use this particular clip that were created earlier. But when I recall this clip later for use in other sets, I'll get the settings that I use here. The next button is kind of a fun one. If I click that, it's actually going to reverse the clip itself, and it will play the samples in reverse, so that I'll hear the decay first and then the attack. Let's check that out. Pretty cool. I'm going to undo that for right now. 2 other buttons that you might use for effect as well are the Have Tempo and Double Tempo. So if I click the Have Tempo button, it'll actually play the clip back at twice the rate. And if I click the Double Tempo button, I can take it back to the original tempo, and then again, I'll actually hear it play at half the rate. This time it's going to be pretty slow. So that might not be the thing to do in this particular set, but at times those can be very, very useful buttons. Now, under the Edit button over here, I have the High Q button, or High Quality button. And this uses a process that requires more processing power, but results in a higher quality playback and allows for greater transposition range. Next to that, I have the Fade button. And when this is enabled, Live automatically drops a very, very short fade on the beginning and ending of the clip. And this ensures that there are no clips or pops that are heard because of poor editing. Next to the fade, I've got the RAM mode button. And when this is enabled, Live will actually load this particular clip into RAM and access it from RAM rather than streaming it from the hard disk. And this is helpful if the track count is high and you're experiencing dropouts or other problems. But the recommendation here is to use this carefully and as a last alternative. Below that, I have the transpose area and the clip volume setting. And I can change those by simply dialing these 2 knobs. So if I need to play this back at a different pitch, I can click and drag on this, and I'll transpose this up, and I'll click play again. And we're hearing some artifacts there. It depends upon the particular clip at how successful Live is going to be able to play that back at a different pitch. And in this case, I've gone 12 steps, which is an octave, and it's struggling a little bit. But from my personal experience, I can tell you that going about a minor third, you can do pretty well. Above that, it just really is the luck of the draw. So let me put that back at 0. I can also fine-tune this by dialing in the sense field down here, and the sense divides a half step into 100. I can also affect the clip playback volume by grabbing this slider and moving that. So let's check out what that does. And this is useful when you run out of headroom on your fader, like you can't turn up a clip loud enough, actually using the volume slider on the track. In the next column, we've got the warp button, and when that is enabled, Live will actually cause the clip to play back at the same tempo as the session, regardless of the tempo that the clip was actually recorded at. So this is really handy, and it will allow us to sync this clip with other clips, no matter what the tempo is. Over on the far right-hand side, we see settings for how the clip is going to loop back and forth. I can set the start and the ending of this clip, and in this case, if I play it, since the loop button is not enabled, it'll only play one time, so I'm going to enable that. Now I've found that it's a lot easier to set the clip beginning and ending over here in the sample editor than actually dialing it in by typing in these boxes. So if I just click on the edge of the clip here and drag, I can set the clip start point to later. And I can do the same thing over here on the end. So now it's going to play these 2 bars instead of the 4-bar length of this clip. And notice that it looped back on itself. Let's take a look at the MIDI clip and see how that's different. Now the clip box shows the same properties. So I've got the clip name, and I've got the clip activator button, and again I can change the clip color, and the time signature, and the groove. Those are all the same. But instead of getting a sample box, I get the notes box. And again, there are a couple things that are the same. For instance, see the original BPM, and I can use the halve and double the original tempo buttons. But where it's a little bit different here is in this area. So if I'm using an external MIDI device, I can actually send bank and program change message to that. So simply click the drop-down menu and select a number here, and it will send that bank change number, or I can go down and do the same thing with the program change. But the clip start points and end points and looping are exactly the same. So understanding the differences between audio and MIDI clips will help you when you need to adjust their properties.